I miss Maharashtra because I liked the food there. The Havapani agreed with me. I felt rooted in Maharashtra. But I love the mountains too. So. Asking about as an untrained architect. And I said, I may not be formally trained as an architect, but I'm trained in so many different crafts, and all comes to use in architecture. I've done sculpture. When I was an art student, I did all the media. I also studied silversmithing and weaving and all the crafts. So I have a background in all the crafts. Lately, I try to do the economics by ecology, not by money. Ecological profit, ecological loss. This is part of philosophy.
जे कुठल्याही गोष्टीची किंमत कॅल्क्युलेट करताना ती फक्त पैशाच्या रूपात नसते करायची, तर त्याच्यात निसर्ग काय इनपुट्स घालतो की जे आपण निसर्गाला परत देत नसतो, त्याची कॉस्ट पण आपण पकडली तर मटेरियल्सचा हिशेब खूप बदलतो. की जी खूप मॅन्युफॅक्चर किंवा इंडस्ट्रियल मटेरियल्स आहेत ती महाग आहेत असं लक्षात येतं. ॲक्च्युली बाजारात ते मटेरियल स्वस्त असू शकतं, पण त्याची जी नेचरची सबसिडी त्याच्यात असते ती जर आपण नाही घेतली तर मग कळतं आपल्याला की ही मटेरियल्स जास्त स्वस्तात आहेत.
And also explain the concept that when you're spending money, it's your money. But you're affecting the atmosphere of the air. Who does that belong to? Because everything you're doing is impinging on the commons and on the future. That turns into money later. The money they have to spend, because now that in Punjab, where there's so much inorganic farming, cases of cancer are way up. And most of it's caused by the use of these pesticides and fertilizers. So the profit has gone to a few people, and the loss has gone to everybody. So it's not good if the profit goes to one person and they've saved. It's better to do things that will benefit the whole, because if the whole of society is benefited, then we're also benefited. This in India people don't understand. And everybody won't be so easily convinced. The boy Emmanuel was asking me yesterday about why the pesticides and fertilizers are becoming so popular. Advertising. You know, our point of view, we don't have any advertising. We don't have any funds for advertising. You know, the work stands for itself, but nobody, I mean, we don't get to. So that as the information for that, all the corporates that are selling are passing that information to everyone because they're earning from people, and they're not passing the information about what's wrong. That actually, by law, that should be illegal to do things without letting you know the side effects. Should be like they have to put it on a cigarette thing now that is injurious to health. So the use of this pesticide is injurious to health. It's not there.
I think even cement industry and steel industry should do that.
Absolutely.
Even they have that kind of impact on public mind,
exactly.
mass mind.
Everybody thinks Ambuja cement.
Right. So they should write on Ambuja cement what are the cons of using cement.
What are the damage done by it?
What is the footprint of that one bag?
You know, I believe in diversity. So I believe that many different solutions are necessary, and that each solution comes from a specific problem at a specific site. And I believe that an individual can only do two things. They can have an overall philosophy and a specific action. When they say think globally, act locally, I'm not living in a city because I don't like them. I don't have a solution for the city. I think there are many things you can do, but I'm concentrated what you could do in the countryside, particularly where I am. And if that is not that same, it's going to be different. What you do in Maharashtra will be different. It's not a copy of this, but it has to be derived. The philosophy can be the same. So the same philosophy adopted by a city architect, they'll have to find solutions. So I have one friend, Chitra Vishwanath, working in Bangalore, who agrees with me philosophically 100%. And she's doing these, she has more than 200 mud buildings in the city. She's using compressed brick from the site. She has a methodology worked out, and she's doing wonderful work. So in each city there will be a different solution. Because the idea that there is a solution that you can apply many places is wrong.
Right.
And the idea that I should apply myself to cities, I don't know cities anymore. I'm completely confused when I go to a city. I can barely cross the street. You know, I'm helpless in the city. But so that's enough. And each place is different. Because now we're trying to find, in adopting Western things, we're losing our own solutions. Actually, people lived in India for 2,000 years without creating as much damage as they've created now in 20 years. It's a strong statement. But understand it really hard. Huh? So, you know, looking at what people did in the past is important. But we didn't have cities like mega cities we didn't have. Maybe we shouldn't have them. I heard this, you know, the work of P. Sainath.
Yes.
He's wonderful.
Yes.
So I heard him speak and he said, I think smart cities are a dumb idea. So, I mean, it may be that we, civilization as we know it, grew from the idea of the city, but it's only a couple thousand years old. Human history is much longer and hopefully might extend into the future, and the city may not be a part of that. Or a entirely different type of city, which is its own ecology. I know that there are buildings in Berlin, for instance, that recycle all their own water. But the building creates its own heat, recycles its water, does it, and that all these products, each process has a byproduct that benefits the building, and that each drop of garbage, sewage, everything is used within that building, and also they generating some agricultural byproduct. So experiments are going on. There's another one in Denmark, a barge thing outside that even has bicycle paths through many stories. There's a big conglomerate of buildings, but you have bicycle paths leading through instead of just elevators, and they're all sorts of solar and it's completely independent. It's like a small neighborhood, completely independent and condensed. So that some entirely new forms may arise. It's not just there's damage. You're not just putting sticking plasters. You have to find new outlooks.
So you're saying that these independent units are more based on not exploiting the countryside the way cities are doing right now?
Of trying to do what you can't have the city expanding its footprint into the countryside. It has to contain more. Like by same idea of, okay, disturb the site as much as you can. But be responsible for its appearance and for your waste. Because if you dig up the site, you get everything from the site. So here I've had to take out one big rock, so I'm going to pick all that plastic garbage that's accumulated and fill it.
We also that when we are disturbing this site as much as we can, we are also stopping industrial materials disturbing some other site somewhere else, which is away from our site.
Yeah, exactly, because usually the damage is being done somewhere.
Yes.
But if it's being done under our eyes and we do something about it, it's better than it's happening there and we don't do anything about it. They say, oh, we didn't disturb the site. Somebody else suffers.
Yes.
And it's basically Gandhian ideas. Actually, you asked about my philosophy is based on studying Gandhiji, studying what he did, studying Indian conditions, changing from the West to India, seeing, observing, and reading a lot. So it's not from one source. But the outlook that Gandhiji had is still so pertinent. But he would have done things, even his response to these things would have been very strong. And it would have been different because it was responding to different realities. So the realities that you're responding to now, you have to take that attitude and respond to them. I have a lot of philosophy involved. Some of it's derived from studying Indian architecture, particularly village architecture, which nobody's studying and which is going now. Many villages you don't see much anymore of the traditional architecture.
There's a lot of good traditional architecture in the area.
We started documenting.
And you should take not motifs, but how they construct and understand it. And then, because you have engineering knowledge, you can sometimes change that a little bit and get more from the medium. The thing is, with the mud, you require much more careful planning. Because if you have a good plinth, my son says that if you go out in the rain, then you have to wear rain boots and a hat or carry an umbrella. So the roof has to be very good. The plinth has to be very sound. The stone up to a decent level has to be there. And then the brick should be well made. One thing, if you're building in these so-called pucca materials, if you make a mistake, nobody will say it's because you use cement. It's your mistake. But if you make a mistake in a mud building, everyone will say, the mud isn't strong. But if you engineer carefully, then you have some advantage from the mud. One is that you can use mud from nearby, so the carbon cost is much less. In fact, the carbon cost is 0. Maybe you have to bring the trolley from a kilometer.
There hasn't been any plastering or anything done later on it?
One's outside is plastered. Inside, you see all the flaws are still there, and the smoke from 20 years. I haven't done it.
20 वर्ष आतून अजिबात एकदाही प्लास्टर न करता असं दिसतं.
I wanted to see how long it will last. Actually, the bamboo has given a lot of trouble, and each time we've overcome the trouble, and I've learned more, and now I can deal with bamboo much better. But using bamboo, you have to be very careful. It's a cheap material, but much cheaper than wood. But you have to put in more into treating the bamboo. You have to spend on the bamboo some of that difference. And this plaster, as opposed to that plaster, this plaster has paper pulp. So I'm very interested in using garbage. And because the main problem now is that we're producing so much garbage. And when I first came to India, all the garbage was biodegradable. The cows could eat it. No? And we're still producing garbage. And some of that garbage, the silver, the chips spoil, 2,000 years before it disintegrates. So I'm trying to use that as an insulating material in building so that it's out of the way and can be used up, because anything we use from that can make use of clears the environment. No? So this floor from here will be a mud floor, no? So it'll have one layer of budgery and then a filling with earth between. And each time you pour a lot of water, it takes a while for it to dry, and make sure that it has no spaces. The main thing here also, if you see when he does the filling work, he's very careful to leave no spaces. I love watching him work. Getting good craftsmen and respecting craftsmanship. I think Gandhiji was very strong on that, respecting the actual worker of the craftsman. And I think most architects, they just give it to a contractor without the contractor really respecting the craftsman. Respecting your craftsmen is when you get good work.
Especially a work that depends so much on hand-done skills.
Exactly. So it's really in the craftsman, the relationship you build with the craftsman. I find the same thing with my suppliers. I only change the supplier if there's been a big fault. I don't go looking at random suppliers. If I have a supplier, I go on with that supplier. Because then they bring you, even the sabjiwala.
Yes.
If you're loyal to your sabjiwala, they're loyal to you. And society should be built with these loyalties. I think it's very important, small things. Small saving. A little cement saved each time, and eventually you save bags full. No? A little small, because when I was doing the solar cooker, I saw that each change I made was 1 or 2 degrees difference. And so that's minor. So in Sambhavna, when I had a meeting of architects there, and we saw that the difference between the interior and external temperature was 13 degrees. In the winter, 13 degrees warmer. So inside we were comfortable while it was too cold outside. So here I'm aiming at 15 to 20 degrees. The difference between freezing and not is 1 degree. The difference between boiling and not is 1 degree. So it's the 1 degrees that makes the difference. And so it's the small details, thinking of where. So I use cement, but I only use as much as I need. And I have one good metaphor I always use. the masons call cement masala. And so I say you wouldn't make your sabji with masala. You put a little masala in the sabji, just what you need. So you treat cement and steel like masala. And if you need it to make a big structure for more light or something, then you have to use it. But only where you need it. Where you don't need it, it's not. If you have some fresh vegetable that's tasting delicious, you don't want much masala because you want the vegetable to give its own flavor. I think I'll use Superlin, and then this, then that's the fluffy, and then I'm going to use some thin metal, thinnest metal sheeting, and then the slate.
Okay, metal sheet as in flat sheet.
Flat sheet.
Oh.
So I'll try something.
Yeah.
This is my own thing. I can try something.
True.
I can never try for clients. For clients, you don't experiment. For clients, you should never experiment. So, but for yourself, you can experiment. So I'm trying to do everything in this room. Some experiment here, some experiment there. I'm very enthusiastic. But that's how I got to be this old. You maintain your enthusiasm. So from here, where it's under this old thing, I have a bookcase. I just have one layer of brick wall and one 6-inch bookcase. Working with me, I'm also very interested in landscaping. So I use as much as I can from the site where I can use that in landscaping. So you plan the creation of levels, you plan according to your needs for the building, you take it from the soil as much as you can. And so then I studied Japanese landscape architecture. And then I had a job for a long time in Bombay advising one of the companies there, Gabriel Shock Absorbers, on their campus. And they won prizes for the way in which, because they had many acres to expand into. So we planted that with forest. And I planted not straight trees, but groups of trees. 5 trees, 7 trees. You don't do 8 trees and 4 trees. You do an organic group of 5 and then 7, and then paths between. And so that they won prize year after year. Then I was working for them just at the time when I went to Japan, so I picked up many ideas. And then I did a mixed border that they use in Japan with different sizes of height, and it looked very, very. It was nice. I mean, I enjoyed it. It looked good too. And they won prizes since it's gone on. Looking at nature, being attentive to nature, that's very disciplined, but there's always then certain numbers, certain symbols, certain proportions that they look for. It looks completely natural, but it's very controlled. You have to think, I mean, it requires thought. Acquiring this natural look didn't come without a lot of thinking.
Yes.
Thank you.
Of course.
In Bombay, I had a house near the beach, and somebody said, "Oh, how lucky you were to find such a nice piece of nature," because it looked like a piece of nature, and it wasn't a piece of nature. It had been carefully created to look like a piece of nature. The basic thing for designing eco-friendly housing is direction. The direction of light at the different times of year. So that the building has a different face, different times of day, different times of year. And it should move the person entering it. It's taking it into consideration. No, the activity determines. The activity, the spaces you need determine it. In fact, I didn't design the school at Sambhavna because they didn't have a clear idea of what type of pedagogy they wanted to use. And the design depends on what you're going to do in it. So they said, just give us some rooms and we'll do what we like. And I couldn't think of any rooms. I have to think of some activity for the rooms. I have to think of a person living in the room. Even if there's no person for the room, like I was designing a resort, I would imagine people coming. What would their effect be? So you always think of what the effect of the building is going to have.
And now what about the aesthetics of the building?
Well, that's proportioning. Everything is proportioned. But I don't actually, architects usually are using models and looking at models. Nobody looks at a building like that, except it's a long discussion who might look at a building like that, but none of us. So seeing the building from inside, I find it's more important, the interior, and I don't give enough attention to the exterior. If I were a little smarter, my exteriors would be more harmonious. They're okay, but they're what arises automatically from the interior. Just as you can't put enough makeup on to hide what you actually are, and what you actually are is lit by what's inside. So, I can't improve it. I think that just one thing that's wrong with most architecture in India is contemporary. There's no attention to detail. Architecture creates emotions. It can create agitation. It can create calm. It can create a sense of awe. Naturally, everything creates an emotion. And that the architect should be aware of that his work has emotional content that either comforts or alienates, or it has naturally it has an emotional content. The buildings should speak for themselves. The buildings should speak for themselves.